Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about making career changes and is it right for you? I think it's going to be really interesting. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Mazor, Kario, Product Innovation and Value Creation Expert, and I'll be your host. And today I have a very special guest. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Jean
Thank you for having
Retief.
me.
Yeah, so my guest is Jean Retief, and she's the author of the FIGGI Life blog and founder of FIGGI Beauty. Thank you for being with me. And we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And now we can start. Could you tell us a bit about the change that you've been doing in your career, and how did you know it if it was the right move for you?
Yeah. Gosh, I've been thinking about this question and
Mhm.
I could give the answer that I think most people would want to know, which is like, "Oh, you just know and it's a feeling and you listen to your guts and all that nonsense," but that's not the truth.
Okay, so what is the truth?
For me, deciding to make this career change was brutal. It was excruciatingly difficult. It was terrifying. It was really like a breaking apart and coming back together. I think my situation was maybe a little different because I wasn't coming from a space where I hated my job and I didn't want to go to my job. I fought tooth and nail for this consultancy. Nobody believed in it, and it was such a success for 13 years. We did so many amazing things, so it felt like my baby, and I've never been the type of person that's like a career adventurist. Once I'm committed to something, I completely commit, and that's me. That's it for
Yeah,
easily the rest of my life. So coming to a decision and realizing that I had to make a change was really difficult for me to do because I was dealing with a lot of things. I was dealing with, first of all, the sense of failure. Did I fail? And that's why I have to make this change. What's wrong with me? Why am I all of a sudden in this stage of my life so deeply, deeply unhappy and deeply unfulfilled? Um, it's also the stage of your life where your kids are toddlers, there are school fees, there's a house payment,
of course.
you're contributing to the financials of the household. So all of these things came together, and it was this amalgamation of of all of these things, of all of these tornadoes, the
Yeah,
storm. And I had to make a decision to see if this is really where I still needed to be, because I felt with Calibrix I wasn't achieving or I wasn't doing what I set out to do anymore in the beginning. And I had health issues. I was diagnosed with panic disorder, which had grown significantly worse. And I had to sit down and get honest with myself and ask myself if this is really still where I wanted to be.
yeah,
And that's how I decided. But it was not an easy decision and it was
yeah.
not overnight. It was really, really difficult.
Could you tell us what you've done before and what is the change after? So, what did you move from?
Yeah, I was a human rights consultant. So my PhD is in international criminal law and international human rights law. So my consultancy, we developed human rights projects and human rights programs in various countries. We also did a lot of crisis management when that was called upon, project management, team management, and we helped NPOs a lot in terms of managing their finances, getting funding, making their
Mm,
programs a success. So
yeah.
that
So,
is really my.
it's now even more surprising because most people would say, okay, I'm looking for something with meaning that would contribute to the world. And you already had that at that aspect, right?
Yeah, that's true. But you know what came with that, and I didn't realize, is extremely taxing emotional job. And I had my own personal background, which I think led me to human rights, with a lot of things that I didn't deal with personally, and it came back to haunt me. So
Mm,
dealing with people's raw emotions like that on a daily basis, seeing the things that you do, the excruciating travel schedule, you're always on a plane, you're always sleeping in some dingy place. It's just it got to be too much. And unfortunately, with all of the politics surrounding human rights and the bureaucracy and the tape, you know, you're so stuck in that bubble that you never get out of it to try and actually help the people that need the help.
Yeah.
So, I needed to make a choice. Was I going to still fight this battle, or was I going to use my background and what I had and employ it in a different way where I felt I could make more of an impact and more
Yeah.
of a change?
So it's even more what you're describing right now because it's your PhD is in that specific profession,
Yeah.
and it's a really hard decision. And today, tell us what you're doing today. So what the change is.
Yeah, so I basically founded FIGGI. FIGGI is a blog and a podcast and a lifestyle brand with a skincare line. Um, but FIGGI is really and was born and is meant for every woman like me. That's in this stage of your life and you just feel something isn't working, but you don't have any place where you can say it. You can't say it at work because then you will be seen to be weak. You can't say you have issues like panic disorder because you're just stressed. Everybody else can handle stress. Get on the train. You can do it too. You know, you're so scared of judgment. You're so scared of failure. You have nowhere to go where they don't tell you, oh, be positive. Just believe yourself into a better space. Just think everything better. No, Figgy is for everybody like me who has struggled and achieved and is still looking for some kind of personal and professional purpose, but where they want to go to say, you know what? It's okay not to be okay. I'm not okay. Life sucks at the moment. Everything terrifies me. And I just want a space where I can be real.
Yeah. So how did you come from this very specific position to something which is like first it's outside of the system, it's self-employed, it's being your own business, it's doing something which is more like a lifestyle, which is very different than human rights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the other side of just thinking about like lifestyle and it's like the other side of what we are thinking about when you're thinking about human rights and who are we dealing with and how did you make that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was actually quite a natural shift. But I can understand from the outside, it looks like day and night.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of, as part of my consultancy in Calibrix, I did a lot of mentorship. So I was basically taking that package that I had developed for over a decade and putting it into a space where I had more control over the message and how it gets to the people who need it. And I wasn't constantly being halted by all of these third parties and elements telling me what I can't and can't do. So for me, that was kind of the natural progression. And in terms of lifestyle and it being more of an inner work, that was also my natural progression from having to sit down and get really open and honest with the issues I didn't deal with in my life. My childhood sexual abuse, really difficult family relationships, my panic disorder and how that's affected my life and my career. And I talk about all of these things very, very openly and extremely honestly on Figgy.
Mhm.
So for me, it was a natural progression if you look at it that way. But from the outside, I can understand it. It looks
Yeah.
completely different.
No. And do you think that there is some kind of stage? What would make some, we have many people, I think that about 80% of people I have read the research are not pleased with their position in their work. They're not pleased. It could be maybe they want to be somewhere else, maybe they're not pleased with their boss, whatever, and they're not doing any changes. And do you think that there is some kind of a stage or an opportunity that you know that right now is a better time for me to deal with this and change is hard, so I need the energy to do so?
Yeah, I think that's for me kind of a two lane answer. First is there's a difference between being completely uh, there's a difference between absolutely knowing an unhappiness within yourself that you need to change and having an unhappiness with an outside event. Like, for example, you're unhappy in your job, you want to change your job. That's two completely different things, you know? And I think we evolve as we grow older. We learn more about responsibilities and the consequences that come with that. And it changes our mind a little bit of the world's view and how we see our careers. Um, but in terms of stages, I don't think there is any one stage where it's easier to make this kind of decision because if you think about it, you're always facing some kind of challenge. When you're just starting out, um, you're challenged because usually you can't find work because you need experience, but you need an opportunity to get experience in order to show experience. So it's very challenging. Then, when you progress to the next level, you want to earn a higher salary, but it's so difficult because every job you apply for looks at your previous salary and says, oh no, okay, I'm not going to give you that much of an increase. So that's a challenge. And then you move on to the next part of your life where you may be wanting to start a family, and then that whole thing comes into play. Okay, do I want to be a career mom? Do I want to be a stay-at-home mom? Am I making that decision now, taking time off and in my career now, or am I doing it later? And you have bills to pay. Excuse me. So there's never a good stage, I think, to do it. Every stage has its own challenges. That's the way I see it.
And do you think it's different between men and women? Because when we're talking about motherhood and stay-at-home moms, I think that it's more of a women issue in that. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been crucified for this view a lot because I really honestly believe that the world is changing, and I am very very lucky to have a very good support system in my husband. But even in my professional career, I've worked with amazing men that have given me unbelievable opportunities and understanding and leeway when I needed it. So I really think it depends on your specific situation, but I don't think we're in a stage in life where we have to let that define us anymore. We do have more opportunities to make it happen for ourselves if we stop kind of confining us to these thoughts that it's so much more difficult and it's so much different because we're women. It is different. It always will be. Just as there are certain things that will be different for men, but we have the tools to navigate that now. We just need to use them correctly and communicate that correctly, and use it to our benefit if we can.
So if we're taking that, I would ask in another question, do you think that women could have it all? Career, family, love? Could that be?
You know, I would say that we should stop asking ourselves if we want it all, because what is all? What does that definition mean to you? Because all to me, if I think about it, is extremely overwhelming. It's juggling a thousand things, it's trying to make everything work at once, and me missing out 90% of my life because I'm always focusing on something else. So what does all mean? How do you define all? Is that 2.5 kids, a happy family, a certain paycheck? You need to define that for yourself. And then if you're clear on that definition, yes, I think you can do it. Just know that, life is always changing. Life always happens. There will always be times where it's harder to commit to certain things than it is to commit to other things. There will always be certain challenges you need to face. And if you're okay with that and you have a clear definition of what your all is and looks like, then I think it is possible.
Yeah, we have a question and I'll read it. I agree with you that every career stage has its own challenges, yet don't we become more experienced, wiser, and more relaxed when we reach a senior and leadership stage? What do you think? I have an answer, but I would love to see what you're saying.
So, first, let me just apologize. I'm so sorry. I've had the worst luck. I've had COVID and I was okay for 2 days and then I got swine flu. So, this is the, the voice and the
No,
cough.
it's
I'm,
that's
I'm
fine.
so sorry about that. Please
No, it's
forgive me.
fine. It's okay.
Um, okay. So, let me just read this again because I had the.
I would say what I think, and you'd think about your answer after it.
Okay, no
I
problem.
I think that most people think that once we become older, wiser, more senior, have a better role in leadership, it seems like we need to be more relaxed and less eager to prove ourselves. From what I know and from my own experience, I don't think that you get to a stage if you don't have this inner stability. You don't get to a stage and then you say, okay, now I'm here.
Mm,
I got here. Now it's all perfect. I got what I want. I think that we're driven to the point that we always need to prove ourselves more. And whatever we
yeah,
get is just not enough because we could always get something which is better, right? And
yeah,
it's not only related to career, is the way that you see your life, is the way that you see your financial achievements, is the way that you see whatever you get. It's like, yeah, there's always more. And are you really content? This is related to what you're saying about all. What is all? So this is
yeah.
how I see it.
Yeah, that I completely agree. That's an amazing way to see it also. And we have to ask ourselves, if you're at a stage where you feel more relaxed and you're in a more senior position and you feel wiser, we also have to remind ourselves that it doesn't really matter what we achieve or where we are or what kind of experience we have. We can always grow, and we really always should. It's when we stop reminding ourselves to grow that we stagnate. And for sure, for example, my example now, I definitely would not have been able to start FIGGI 10 years ago. I am for sure at a much bigger advantage in doing this because of the amount of experience that I have been able to build up over the past 10 years in relationships, in project management, in international law. But it's still terrifying. I am, even as I sit here before I came onto this meeting, I was dealing with a crisis and I am terrified. I'm terrified of making a mistake. I'm terrified of being in this new industry. It's extremely intimidating, and it always will be, and it should be, because that's how we learn and that's how we push ourselves to be better and to do more. So yeah, you do get experience and you do get wiser, but for me personally, I don't think I get more relaxed in a senior. I may actually get a little more stressed.
Why do you think it's more stress? I could understand when if you're not relaxed, but because you need to prove more.
I think, especially when you make such a significant change like I just did, you have a lot of pressure to make it
Hmm.
work,
Yeah.
because I have taken away a big chunk of my family's finances, monthly finances, in order to pursue this. I have gone into something completely new. I studied cosmetic chemistry, which is something completely different. And there is a very good chance that I may fail, or this may not work, or something may go wrong. A lot is riding on this, and that's just the reality. So those type of things will always stress us out, and it will always at least make us doubt ourselves, even if it's
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah. When I think about what we call a change or a crisis is a really fast and big change for us. But in general, when we think about change, it's like it's sometimes overwhelming and it's
Yeah.
really hard to do. And most people would try to avoid it as much as they can if they could. Um, and I think it's a way for us to understand that this is how we're flowing with life, and we're not against life and not against what's going on in our life. And sometimes, yeah, it means that we need to have these decisions of, yeah, I'm going to work about, I know most of the time that I'm awake, I'm at work. And I need to figure out if this is what really I want to do. It. This is what I see my life as, like when I envision my life in the future, when I go back and see my life when I'm 80 and I want to see my life, is it exactly what I want it to be? Is
Mm,
it like closer to that or not? And
yeah.
it's intimidating just to think about, like, so I don't have to go with this specific route that was paved for me. Like, I
Yeah.
went to university, I got this role, now I'm in this position, I already have this experience. why would I do something different? Like,
Exactly.
and it's a big question. Most people would say, I have a stable job, I have my salary, I know what I'm worth. I'm not gonna like um, endanger my self worth with something that I might make mistakes and fail. So I'm
Yeah.
staying here. And more or less, you see people staying in the same position, even if it's boring for them. By the way, if you're in leadership position, sometimes you're bored. It means that you're more or less in the same role or the same domain for so many years, and it's not that challenging. So
Yeah.
sometimes this is what happens. And you see people staying in this stagnatic situation, not trying to do anything else. You know, they're going to work. We have lots of traffic in Israel. I don't know if you have that, but we have lots of traffic. So you have traffic in the morning, you have work, you're coming back in traffic, more or less some kind of errands and going to see Netflix, more or less. And then,
Yeah.
again and again each day. And and I think that most people would say it's enough for them.
Yeah.
They don't strive to
And
have
that's
anything
okay.
else.
If that is enough for you, that's okay.
Hmm.
But if you're clearly unhappy, then you have to be brave enough to make the change,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, I totally understand. So why do you think that balance in life is a myth?
Oh my gosh, my dear friend Balance. We've had some really bad times together.
Okay.
The thing about balance is, and the thing that frustrates me about this is that the conversation in society is so geared towards balance. You have to have a balanced life. And then when everybody started realizing that it's really difficult to balance all things, they started changing the conversation, especially for women, saying, "Oh no, you can have everything, just not at the same time." So it's still I'm tricking you into thinking it is still balanced, but you can have everything at the same time.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that we spend so much time and energy and stress chasing balance. It's actually ironic because we want balance to be more calm and in a more better space and more mindful, but we spend all of our energy trying to chase balance and we don't achieve it. And we never will because to me balance doesn't exist. Life always happens. I mean, maybe the listeners' lives may be different than mine, but my life does not have a roadmap. I mean, things come at me when I least expect it in sometimes the best ways and sometimes the most horrible ways. And that will keep on happening because that is the journey of life. That's the whole existence of life. It always has an ebb, it always has a flow, it always has a yin and a yang. So the best that you can do is to strap into life's roller coaster and do the absolute best that you can do at the stage where you're at. If you're at the top, just do your best in that moment. If you're on your way down, plummeting towards the ground, take it as it comes and just try and do your best and just
Yeah.
flow through the motions like that. There will always be times where I am a lot more under pressure and I have to put in a lot more hours at work. But if I communicate that to my family and say, listen, this week is going to be really tough. If you can take over dinners for me and if you can do the school run next week, we change it around and I'm on the school run again and I'm giving hugs and kisses and quality time. And you get to ebb and flow that, like one day you'll be up, one day you'll be down. And if we can just try our best to ride that wave. I know it's horribly difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of stress out of it, rather than trying to chase this perfect ideal that doesn't
Yeah.
serve us in the end. But that's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that I understand what you're saying is like we are investing so much energy in this concept of being balanced, like in life, in our health, in our work, in our work-life balance, all of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're trying to control things, and there's so much energy in trying to control the circumstances and trying to control ourselves and to control everything. And instead of like going with the flow is what you mentioned, we're just so focused on the effort of
Yes.
balance.
Yeah. And it's difficult to go with the flow. I find it super difficult. I love control. I have to be in control. But it
Yeah,
helps me to think if I'm in that moment to just continuously remind myself, just do your best where you are right now. What's the best
yeah.
you can do right now? And just go with that.
Yeah, I think it's related maybe to self empathy, to
Yes.
understand that everybody's doing their best. And although it doesn't look to us like that way, but everybody's doing whatever they can in order to balance their life and in order to
Yeah.
make it better. And just to understand that we cannot control everything, not our internal feelings and thoughts and the way that we behave, and not surely not the external ones. And whatever we're doing, we're doing our best, like it's not related, but I have to tell you, like, I had a discussion with my kid at the morning, and he said something, and then instead of like being so motherly and say, and he's a teenager,
Yeah.
so instead of like saying, yeah, you're right, it's so hard, you cannot do it, like being so motherly, I was so like stressed and told him, like, why are we discussing this again? And it's like, yeah, it's like I'm trying to control this situation, and I cannot, let's say the truth. And for me, it's like trying to resist the fact that currently I cannot do anything and you cannot do anything, and we're like helpless in this situation, and it's okay. And instead
Yeah.
of saying that it's okay, I try to fix it and manage it and to control it, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really work, right?
Yeah.
Being
It
a teenager.
stresses you out even more. You're actually more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there is a really good book. I'm not sure that I remember the name. Like, I think it's called the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck or something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
You know
I've
it?
read it. I've
It's
read it.
really good. And
Yeah.
it's
It's
related
very
to
good.
that. It's related to the fact that people are invested so much energy in just
Yeah.
trying to be, this career person and being thin and doing the exercise and eating well and doing like everything is like needs
Yeah.
to be this way. And then instead of getting the result that they really want and what they want to be content and I know happy is the right word, but content and relaxed in their life. But
Yeah.
instead of doing that, they're so intense in doing what they need to do in order to be relaxed.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a vicious circle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It just keeps on spinning.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my teachers, and she wanted to go to this workshop. I think it was a yoga workshop or meditation. I don't remember. And she was like, she woke up a bit like too late, and she was so stressed. And she shouted at her kids and everyone at home just to get there to this yoga retreat or whatever. And only on the
Okay.
way she understood that she did it. Just only when she got to the car, she understood that she just shouted all around in her house in order to get to
Oh,
this
shame.
retreat.
But we do that. We do that. We put so much energy and focus. I mean, I remember after I had my baby, I really had severe body issues and um I was extremely, I think like many new moms focused on like losing this last few
Sure. Go
kilos and they
back
just
to where
would
you were.
not go away.
Yeah.
You know, and you go on this diet and every friend and a family friend has that kind of advice that you haven't tried or the secret trick or tip or whatever
Yeah.
and then eventually I just gave up. Like I ate that piece of chocolate cake when I wanted to. I indulged in pasta when I wanted to. And when I stopped focusing on it so much, it just naturally started to happen because I think I was just investing so much energy into this. And, you know, I was actually almost stopping myself from achieving that goal.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we're trying to imagine how it should be, and there is like imagination, and there is like real life. We
Yes.
imagine we should go back to ourselves, like we have this in Israel. We have lots of kids in Israel, so we have lots of pregnancies and going back to before the pregnancy, and there is this notion of going back to the genes you were
Okay.
before you had like you got
Oh,
pregnant.
yes. Before you had your pregnancy genes.
Yeah, the genes. And just thinking about it like as an idea, that we have to be a teenager or a 20 years old when you're 35? Why would you, like, it's not natural. You're not
Yeah.
20, you're 35. This is how old you are. And
Yes.
we're just going back, like trying to go back to this genes that, okay, I was 20. That's what
Yeah.
I was. And it's related to the next thing that I want to ask you is about self-acceptance, and how do you see it?
Oh, self acceptance, I think, is a really deep inner journey because, again, you have to define what self acceptance looks like to you. Like, what is it that you are exactly struggling with? For me personally, I had a really hard time with self love and self kindness. And I am the least assertive person you will ever meet. So I had a lot of things that I need to work on in terms of being more respectfully assertive, setting better boundaries. Those are the things that define self acceptance to me. But also, I think whatever makes you feel good in the morning when you get out of bed and say, "Yeah, I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with the jeans I'm wearing, and I'm happy with the routine I have today, and I'm happy with the food I'm eating, and I'm happy with the career I'm going to." All of that to me culminates into self acceptance, but it has these different facets that all have to come together. And that's something you have to sort out for yourself because we all struggle with different things.
Yeah. When we just had this discussion, I, like, in my head, most people would say that most of my podcast is about, technology, career, business, right? And what we're talking about is so personal. And
Yeah,
as I see it, it's like intertwined. You cannot really, like, this is me in my career, in my business, and this is me in my personal life. Here I express feelings and I think about self acceptance, but I don't think it's like the same thing. How do you achieve the point that you're content with yourself as a businesswoman, as a career person? How do you relate to your business as it's part of me, right? Most people, when
exactly.
they go to work or in their profession or their role or what is written on their card, right? This is
Yeah,
them. So it's related directly to how do I accept myself? How do I see myself? Would I see myself the same if I didn't have this title, right?
exactly. And that's exactly why um, I felt this real need to bring about FIGGI because in my years in my consultancy and working with teams and everything, I really saw this challenge that especially women were extremely afraid to voice their honesties in a professional environment because it's seen as fluff and the things we don't talk about and the things you just deal with. But the problem is, whatever is happening in your personal life will in some way translate into your professional life. And whatever is happening in your professional life, for example, if you're really unhappy at work, is going to translate to your home life. And the people that you share your space with there are the ones that are going to suffer because of it, because you're bringing that home with you. So, and that's what Figgy is about, saying that it isn't fluff. It isn't something that we shouldn't talk about or we shouldn't say for fear of not getting the promotion or being seen as somebody that talks about too many personal stuff at work. No, it's just part of life. And I think especially after COVID, people have begun to realize that more. It's intertwined. Your entire life, basically 80% of your life you spend at work. So it's only natural to think that your personal and your professional life are going to intertwine.
How do you see the change during or after the COVID crisis? How do you see people changing and doing more decisions to make change in their career? We know about people leaving their jobs and the great resignation and all of that. How
Yeah.
do you see that?
I think that during COVID for me, I saw a big change in mindfulness and people being a lot more willing to be in a space of thinking about what is really important to them, how they want to live their lives. Where I am at and the people that I deal with now, where we are post COVID and everything is going a little bit more back to normal, I actually see, for me, an increase in stress, even more than it was pre-COVID, because it's like people just not even hit the ground running. They just like flew into that lane again of, okay, everything is working again, everything is working again. We have to make money again. We have to get in, we have to get all our contacts going again. We have to get meetings going again, and all of this mindfulness and everything that they celebrated during COVID kind of flew out the window for many times for good reason. I mean, you have families to support, you have many things going on, right? So for me, post COVID and the changes that I've seen post COVID isn't really that significant. During COVID, yes, but now where everything has gone back to normal, I feel like the rat race is even faster, and there's even more competition, and there's even more stress and strain to getting that goal and getting the sales and making it work. Yeah.
I see. And do you think like what we're talking about is going from a specific system or an organization, going outside to building your own brand or your own business? What would you tell people who are inside a company and they're having these like thoughts about change? Like it could be within the organization, it could be outside. It's like opening
Yeah.
something else, going to a new career path or to a new role. What do
Look,
you think?
changing a career is not for everybody. Just like entrepreneurship is not for everybody, just like being a doctor isn't for everybody. You have to ask yourself really the difficult, tough questions. Do you really want to change a career and start your own thing, or are you just unhappy with where you are at? And if you are unhappy there, is there something you can do to change that? Can you speak up? Can you make your position or your situation better for yourself? And a lot of times when you ask these things, people will tell you, "Oh no, I don't really hate where I work. Like I love the company values and I love the morals and I love like my working hours. It's just that these things bother me." So maybe I would say to first look at that. What exactly is it that you're unhappy with, and why do you want to make the change? And when you're clear on that, then you can say, okay, I know and I understand I definitely do not want to be here because of A, B, and C. Is there something that I can do to move away from this? Yes, I can start my own thing. No, my own thing is not something that I want to commit to, but I can look for other opportunities. Um, that would be my advice, because it also doesn't help to make big changes in your life that are going to end up causing you more heartache and more stress and more disappointment. If you're going to commit to something like this, make sure you do it right and you invest the time and the energy that you should in making the right choice.
Yeah. I totally agree that being a business owner is not for everyone else. And most people are not, they're employees. Most people are not a business owner
Yeah.
or somebody who's like self employed or whatever. But I think that in many cases, people are so afraid of the change that they even don't check the possibilities
Mm.
because they're afraid that this open door might put them in a position that is so uneasy, in an uneasy situation, that they just try to avoid it. And
Yeah.
you see people that are stuck in an organization that you cannot change. There are so many circumstances that you cannot change because this is your position. This is what the other people are doing. You don't have other role that is open for you, especially if it's not a big organization, and people would stay there. And it's not like I'm not criticizing that, I'm just questioning what is the reason that they would stay. And I think that most people are looking for stability and they're trying to avoid change, and therefore sometimes they're not doing things even if they really really want to do it, and they could do it. Like most
Yeah.
people could do some kind of change and they're avoiding it.
Yeah.
And what
But
do
I
you
think
think?
there the fear there comes from the unknown. Nothing creates more stress than uncertainty and insecurity. People need security, and especially when it comes to finances and having a family to look after and you have bills to pay, bring in the element of the unknown, and that stress just escalates to amazing levels, right? Which is understandable. It is understandable. I
Sure.
mean, it was the same for me. That's why it took so long to make this decision to start FIGGI and take a break from Calibrix. And I'm sorry I did it that way. I feel like I could have done it better and I could have made the decision sooner. But I was terrified of the unknown. I was terrified of taking that financial cut. I was terrified of starting, when I started my consultancy, I didn't need to have a lot of startup capital because I was rendering services which was based on my experience and my expertise and my knowledge. I didn't need to mass produce products or um, formulate samples and pay for these things. All of a sudden I was not only just taking away finances from my family, I was actually investing finances into having to pay for all these things. And that's scary and terrifying. But I think the thing that really, really sucks about that is the only way you're going to know if it's going to work is if you're going to try.
Yeah,
So
for
are you going
sure.
to take the leap or are you not going to take the leap? And either way, don't judge yourself. If you
Mhm.
feel like you do not have at this moment the mental like fortitude or the courage or the time or the commitment to do it, then don't force yourself to do it. But if
Mhm.
you're going to take the leap, then be all in.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you on that one. So we're almost done. We could talk for hours, I think. But I would think, like, what would be your tip for people who are just having this question mark in front of them? What would be your tip when they're I think they need to get to a stage. It needs to be really, really hard in order for them to decide to move on. What would be your
Yeah.
tip to these people?
My tip would be to feel it, feel the fear. Don't walk through it, don't avoid it because you're avoiding the fear and the uncertainty, it's making you stop and think and not do. Feel the fear, confront it head on. Like, for example, write down for yourself, be the worst pessimist and put it in black and white. What is the worst thing that can happen if you take this chance or if you take this step, and make peace with that? Because that fear is what creates, you know th- everything else, the stress, the not doing it. So get real with that and feel it. And if it's something that's holding you back because it's something that you still need to sort out within yourself, what do you want, where do you want to go, what is your purpose, then get real with that. Face your own pain, face your own struggles. We're always trying to avoid these things, and it's this avoidance that actually comes back to
Sure.
be the greater problem. So yeah, just feel it
Yeah.
and just look at it head on.
Yeah. Like one of the things, I don't know if I told that in my podcast, but one of the things that I really love to do is to learn. And I always take some kind of a course or a session or something in the university each year. And last year, I went and studied ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, and it's like, it was so interesting just to see that the fact that people are trying to avoid pain or confusion, uncertainty, being hurt, this is something that is one of the, or maybe the main thing that makes their life so much harder. And sometimes you do need to allow yourself to be in that mess
Yeah,
and to be in that pain in order to allow yourself to do something else. Because if
yeah,
not, the avoidance, it takes such big toll on your life, and it's so many resources in order
yeah,
not to feel disappointed, and not to feel sad, and not to feel frightened. We're doing so much more, and
yeah,
sometimes we just need to let it be. And when we're allowing ourselves to be frightened and to be even overwhelmed, sometimes we could find ourselves on the other side after
yeah.
that.
But just to be clear though, I mean, it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible to go through that, and it's horrible to face it, and it's terrifying to think of it. But I don't know, it's like pulling off the band-aid, it's worth it in the end, but it's
Yeah,
not easy.
it's not. I totally agree. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you,
Thank
Jean,
you so
and I
much.
really enjoyed it. So how could people hear more about Figgy and what you're doing? Tell us.
So you can find us on the Figgy Life website, FIGGI life.com. And there you will also find the blog, the podcast, but you can also find us on all the social media networks, Instagram, Facebook. You can just look for Figgy or Figgy Beauty, and then you would be able to find us.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna look for the things for the beauty and I'm gonna check it out.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jean, and having this open-hearted discussion is always like wonderful for me. I really enjoyed it, so thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Sure, and to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining me. And if you want to learn more about what I do, go to invincibleinnovation.com, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.